We also. Oh, is it saying mic is muted? Oh, this one.
No, it's not
okay.
muted.
Sorry.
We're not muted. We're having technical difficulties. We're all good.
It's fine, everyone. It's fine. It's fine. It's Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
Yeah, but
welcome to Gutsy Gathering.
Welcome, and not just any Gutsy Gathering. It's the 1 year Gutsy Gathering anniversary.
Gutsy Gathering anniversary?
Yeah, I made up a new word.
Gutsy Gathering anniversary.
It's a lot. Yeah, that'll be in a spelling bee one day. Try to spell that. Anyways, who cares? Thank you for joining us. We're going to have an amazing conversation tonight. And before we do that, we just want to let you know, if you guys have any comments or questions, you can drop them in the comments below and we'll be able to see them. We'll be able to respond to them. And your question or comment may just even come across the screen. You're going to be a celebrity. It's going to be amazing. Amazing.
This day is amazing.
It really is. And Joe, month of May.
The month of May. May is a special month. May is a month full of 31 days.
It is.
But each day is not like the other because there's one day in the month that stands out.
The 19th in particular. Does everyone know what that is? It's World IBD Day.
Yay! A whole day dedicated to IBD. The whole world focuses on IBD.
On all of those IBD warriors. I have ulcerative colitis.
I have Crohn's disease.
Yeah, and we're going to talk to two of our speakers tonight who are also IBD warriors, ostomates, and amazing speakers.
Amazing.
Yeah, so let's bring them in, shall we?
We shall.
Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Hello, Tina and Charlotte.
Hello.
Well,
hi.
You guys ready for a rip-roaring good time tonight?
Heck yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited, and we're really glad that our mic is working because the little thing came across and said it wasn't. So we're happy to see that you can hear us.
Excellent. So hi Noelle and hi everyone who's joining us. Let's start off and let's let our guests do a brief introduction of themselves. So Tina, why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself, and tell everybody a little bit about you.
Sure. Hi everybody. My name is Tina Aswani Charlotte. You may know me as Own Your Crohn's. My social media and blog are both called Own Your Crohn's. I also recently started an initiative with 5 other co-founders who are South Asian and have IBD like myself. And that's called IBD Desis. And I live with Crohn's disease for the last 15 years, and I've had a permanent ostomy for the last 9 years and change. This is my 3rd ostomy, and I've had multiple surgeries, multiple fistulas, and I'm really excited to be here with you tonight.
We're excited to have you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Charlotte.
Hey, everyone. My name is Charlotte Rensberger, and I have Crohn's disease. I became a nurse because of my experiences with health as a teenager. I was actually diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at age 16 and had my first ostomy and colectomy and J-pouch at that time. And then a couple years later, the diagnosis changed from ulcerative colitis to Crohn's disease. And so I've been battling that since my early 20s. And my J-pouch worked great. And then in 2015, it failed really badly. And I had some urgent surgeries and some ICU stays and things like that related to that recovery. And then since then, I've been living this fabulous life with this permanent ostomy. And on Instagram, I'm Mama's Got a Brand New Bag because I try and bring humor into this experience because if I don't know that I would survive it. I am super excited to be part of this chat tonight. I not only am a nurse, I'm actually a nurse practitioner, and I don't necessarily work with IBD patients. I work in the newborn nursery with babies. But I'm super excited to be a part of this chat and just kind of share with you guys kind of perspectives.
Awesome. When we hear about, you work with babies, what do we always say? Ostomies are like newborn babies, always pooping.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Yep.
There's a connection there. There's an absolute connection there. But yeah, so let's dig in. What does IBD Day mean to us? What do we want to do? I know for us, we're all about sharing our stories every day of the year. Every day is IBD Awareness Day to us. But specifically, I think on IBD Day, we tend to share our stories more, bring some awareness to these diseases and into our ostomies because we have them. But what does it mean to the both of you?
We'll start with Tina.
So that's a great question. World IBD Day is really special, I think, to me, because it's a day where a whole bunch of us are creating awareness, right? Like we'll be sporadically posting or posting every now and then, but here we are, sort of on this one day, all coming together to make sure we're sharing our stories, but not just our stories, why this day is so important to us. It makes us feel alive. It makes us feel like we have a community. It makes us feel like, we are heard, we are seen, we are IBD visible. So I really enjoy World IBD Day for those reasons, and I enjoy Awareness Weeks in general, and months for that reason, because it really gives life to us as a community and makes us feel whole.
Excellent. I concur.
Oh, I know. It's amazing. I think a lot of times too, and everyone just like, oh, that's a pooping disease. Oh, and it's like, oh, it's so much more. And I think it's a great time to, bring about those. I know for me specifically, I have a lot of eye pain with my IBD and a lot of joint pain. And people are like, what do you mean? What do you mean your eyes hurt? And I'm always like, I'm strange in that way, but that's usually like one of my first signs of a flare. I feel like I've been, you've had a really rough day and you've been crying. And then the next day you feel like you have tons of sand in your eyes.
Yeah.
That's kind of my biggest flare thing. So bringing on that kind of information on World IBD Day, even like my closest family members had no idea, even though they've all heard my story and lived through it with me. But it's things like that. It's the small things that maybe people don't completely realize.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, it's really important just to have the opportunity to share my story and read other people's stories too. I think back to 2015, and I fought getting the ostomy with everything I had inside me, just because I had such like stressful, traumatic memories from when I had my first ostomy as a teenager. Because I think, as an adult, I can look back and go, well, as a teenager, I was hormonal and emotional and having all of these changes happen in my body anyway. And then to be dealing with a disease that's main issue is pooping. And teenagers don't want to talk to anybody, let alone talk to somebody about pooping and answer all these personal questions about body parts that they don't want people to be touching, and they're going to get touched. I remember telling my mom, like, I didn't tell my mom for 6 months that I was having bloody stools. And by the time I told her, I didn't want to tell her because I knew that she was going to take me to the hospital and they were going to do bad things to me. And I didn't want that. And so in 2015, when that all went bad, I remember like the depression that I went in after that, and really feeling like I was alone, and trying to find people on Instagram, trying to find people on Facebook, stumbling across these little communities of people that existed and were not only like surviving, but like living amazing lives, and, backpacking on glaciers and competing in triathlons. And like I feel like Tina said, like I thought like the ostomy was the worst thing. It was going to be a death sentence to me. And I can do so much more with my ostomy than I could 10 years ago with my Crohn's. Mm-hmm. And I feel the same way that you do, Danielle. Like people sometimes think, well, like you have an ostomy, so your Crohn's is fixed, right? Like you're all better, right? No, like some days I can't move my hips, like these different things that, affect all these different systems in our body. And when one of them is out of whack, the rest of them get out of whack too. And really trying to articulate that and go to the doctor and say, hey, like I look great today, and I know that my labs look normal and my CT scan looks normal, but I feel like crap. And what are we going to do about it? What can we do? And, like really like sharing out there that like, yes, I have Crohn's disease and I look great on paper, but 3 days ago I was nauseous and I couldn't get out of bed, and I was in the ER because my heart was racing, and really sharing those experiences so that that it's not just a pooping disease, and it's not just that you have to feel 100% of the time, because you're not going to. And I think really just getting out there and sharing that story is helpful to people that maybe aren't comfortable speaking out, but they're comfortable surfing other people's stories. And so it's important for me to share because of that.
Yeah, and letting everyone know you're not alone.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting too. Like when I'm, insomnia has hit, which I know a lot of us have to deal with frequently. I'm always on my Facebook groups reading about other people and learning about other things. And, it's the little tiny things that I never even considered might be IBD related. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds just like me. There's a lady, on her farm in Nebraska who I've never met before. And I've at that moment at 3:03 a.m., I never feel more, I feel like so in tune to this person. I feel like I'm reading my own story kind of thing. It's just
Mhm.
really exciting to be able to, not that we all want to have these things happen to us, but it's really, really nice and comforting to know that, everything I'm feeling and saying is validated. Other people have this. Because I know even sometimes as open as I am, I sometimes feel like I'm not completely seen by some of my specialists. Not necessarily I'm very like with my GI and my colorectal surgeon, but like you said, Charlotte, everything is kind of mushed together, right? Everything plays off of something else medically. And, I'd love to be seen more by my providers who are not in those specialties. So it's always important for me to tell my IBD story to, my endocrinologist or whoever it is that I'm seeing that day to make sure that all of my I's are dotted and all of my T's are crossed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the community we both touched on. We've all talked about the community, just being a part of the community on World IBD Day or any of the awareness days, awareness months, and it's one of the things that I think we're all very fortunate living in the time we're living, being so connected via the internet, to where we go from feeling alone of having IBD or having an ostomy to suddenly we have a few people that we can come in contact with here personally, right? Like Danielle, we're a little support system here, but then to reach out across the internet and find lovely people such as yourselves and all over the country, all over the world. It's just amazing to be in touch with this vast community that we're a part of.
And I love when we all get the chance to be together at conferences. I know we've all seen each other in different ways, and it's so cool when you can see those people in person. And I'm looking forward to that again when all of these pandemic shenanigans come to an end. And I just wanted to jump on here real quick. Elise, we are totally live right now. Somebody asked, "Is this really live?" It is.
It is presently 7:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on May 26th.
Yeah, and I wanted to reiterate too, for those of you just jumping in, if you have any questions for our panel, for Joe and I, please feel free to put those in the comments, and we are able to see them and address them.
And while we're doing that, let's step out to another area of discussion, kind of going along with World IBD Day. And one of the things about raising awareness, one of our jobs, our goals that we all have of raising awareness is to get rid of the stigma associated with IBD. So let's have a conversation about the stigmas that we've all faced, that we're all aware of, and what we do to try to eliminate those and educate people about this. So let's start with Charlotte and talking about the stigma of IBD and the stigma of ostomies.
Yeah, I think for me, I spent the first probably 2 years figuring out how I could hide my ostomy. Like how, what products did I need to wear to hold it so that you couldn't see it under my shirt, so that you couldn't see it under my bag or under my pants? What are ways that I can get rid of people knowing that it's there? And I think it took a hot second for me to feel comfortable with that, like to be able to share it and talk about it. And it was hard, and because I think without being punny, poop is always the butt of everyone's jokes. Like everyone thinks fart noises are funny. Everyone thinks pooping is funny. Like it's just what is comedy, right? And it's hard to step back from that when you have to have a serious moment and know that it's okay. One of the things I fixate on all the time is odor. And so I constantly feel like I smell. And it's something that, has gotten better over time. And I've learned tips and tricks. And I'm constantly asking closer friends and family, like, do I smell? Like, am I okay? And, I've got some really honest friends that are like, a little bit, and some other friends that are like, absolutely not. You're totally fine. Just like, let it go. So, for me, it's been really important to kind of be open about what's going on in my life and what I'm worried about, because I find that then things are a little bit easier to handle. And so, one of the things like too that I always do, and I've talked to a whole bunch of ostomates, I'm always checking to see if it's gassy and full, because when that happens, then you run the risk of a leak. So I constantly am rubbing my stomach to see like, what's the level of fullness in the bag? Like, do I need to try and get to the bathroom sooner rather than later? And And so now people are like picking up on those habits of like what I kind of do every day. And everyone has their little quirks, right? So even people that don't have ostomy bags have little quirks that they do to get through the day. And these are mine. And it just happens to be related to the fact that I have an ostomy. And so, it's important for me to be open and honest with people about it. And I'm an open book. I'm willing to answer questions about anything. And that was important to me too, because I had a lot of questions, with this last ostomy. I'm married and I have kids and I have a husband. And as much as another thing people don't like to talk about is sex, but, I wanted to know that, sex is an important part of a marital relationship. And I really wanted to make sure that that was going to be preserved in this. But it's hard to talk about that. And I was really lucky to have a surgical team that was all female, and like that's super rare. But I just felt like I was in the best hands because I could articulate to her what my concerns were, and I knew that she could understand what I was asking. So the textbooks, of course, say that people with ostomies who, women with ostomies, men with ostomies, we're still allowed to have sex. We still can have sex. But like I had questions about like the mechanism of those type of encounters and what that was going to be like post-surgical. And I was able to articulate that to my female surgeon who knew what I was talking about because she had had sex too. So, it was really important to me just to be open and honest. And so that's kind of like my biggest advice to patients is, like be open and honest with your surgeon and ask the questions that are really important to you. Because as a provider, like we can't read minds, and we have different priorities when we have an appointment with our patients to know what's important to us. It's really good to know what's important to them too, and what their priorities are, and what they would like to focus on. And that's the best way to strengthen that relationship and really advocate for yourself.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I know there's difficult subjects mixed with difficult subjects, making it all the more hard to get all the answers that we need and all the care that we need. And yeah. Tina, how about you?
Regarding stigma, right? So this is a complex topic. I think there's layers of stigma and shame involved. And, I think we've been doing an amazing job, I'd say, especially over the last 5 to 7 years with regards to creating awareness and using social media to do something really positive in creating education, awareness campaigns, etc. But I think the shame around this being a bathroom illness is very real. But more so than just being a bathroom illness, there's layers of stigma that are cultural or that may be based on race or ethnicity. And I'm of South Asian descent. My family is from Pakistan and India, and there's a lot of shame that even though I was born and raised here in New York and New Jersey, there was a lot of expectation on me in terms of being the eldest daughter of the family, taking care of my family, supporting my family. And when I got sick, this took a huge toll on me. It was like, oh my God, she can't take care of us. My father also had this disease, and he passed away from complications due to colorectal cancer from longstanding Crohn's disease. His sister as well in New Delhi, India, and their great aunt as well, undiagnosed in Karachi, Pakistan, but she bled to death. So no real diagnosis back in the 30s, but, it very much suspected. So this is very much a hereditary condition. It goes undiagnosed a lot in my culture, or it gets labeled irritable bowel syndrome, which is very, very different from inflammatory bowel disease. And so I think, if cases were mild, people would not pay attention to them. But even if they got so severe, it's not something you feel comfortable bringing to your doctor at all. As especially as a woman of our background, it brings shame upon our family to discuss these types of symptoms publicly. But even to go and seek care for it, it can bring shame upon your family if people find out. So there's like a whole phrase in Hindi and in Urdu that's like, what are people going to think? And it's a way of sort of expressing that let's not talk about that because people are going to judge that. And so that's a really hard thing to contend with, because I feel like I have one foot in each culture, in American culture and then in South Asian culture. And to live up to what my elders or South Asian society, dictates as appropriate versus needing to get my care, there was a big clash between the two. There was a huge tug of war between what my doctor wanted me to do and what my family wanted me to do. And I was 24 and losing weight rapidly. I was 135 pounds, 5'6", and I went down to 85 pounds and being fed by TPN. And my doctors were like, look, Tina, we got to get you on a biologic, or we got to get you into surgery. I mean, by the time I even got on a biologic, it was too late. And this was a twofold factor that was involved. One was cultural stigma. The other was step therapy. So I was facing insurance issues from going from, a mesalamine drug up to a biologic. So I had to fail everything first. And then in that time frame, also, my family was like, oh, no, this is a diet disease. And inflammatory bowel disease is a diet disease, I was being told. You just need to change your lifestyle. I was shamed. I was blamed. I was told that I must have done this to myself with poor lifestyle habits, with my Wall Street career, blah, blah, blah. And so this was a really hard thing to contend with. Here was my life completely derailed, my Wall Street career completely derailed. And on top of that, people are like, I did this to myself. Mind you, the genetic component, wasn't even being talked about. So, I laugh, but it was really hard to contend with all of this. As a young person, having your life sort of crumble right in front of your face. So there's a lot of stigma going back to, that general topic of not just talking about the disease or seeking help for the disease, just even seeking that care, but there's also stigma around trying medication or going for surgery. You see a lot of Indian doctors or South Asian doctors, but the reality is a lot of us choose to pursue alternative medicine because that's how we've been raised. That's what's considered the norm. And, we talk a lot in American culture about sort of the mistrust of the medical system, and especially the Black and Latino and Indigenous populations. What's often not discussed is the mistrust in Asian and Arab populations too. There's a lot of tendency in our cultures to pursue alternative medicine because we don't trust Western medicine or traditional medicine. And as if those layers of shame and stigma weren't enough, the ostomy. That's like a whole other level, right? So it was a really hard thing for me to even approach with my family. And my doctor would have to often tell my mom to leave the room. He's like, look, Tina, if you don't have the surgery, you could die. And he literally said that to me. And I was 24 years old. And I had to make the decision, and this was on the 3rd of July, 2008, to have my then boyfriend, he's now my husband, and one of my good friends come in from New York City to New Jersey to my mom's home, pick me up, take my car, and take me to the emergency room because my family was so against surgery. I was told that the ostomy would be the end of my life, but it actually gave me my life back. And I can't emphasize that enough today because the cultural stigma is extremely real. And as if this disease isn't hard enough to deal with, to have to contend with all of that stigma and the psychosocial aspects, it's like a whirlwind has just like pulled the rug from beneath your feet, and you suddenly don't know where your life has gone, and you're sort of looking death in the face, and you're having to make decisions that aren't going to make your family or your doctor happy, and you're sort of stuck in the middle. And that was kind of the situation that I was in.
That's incredible. I mean, you had like you said, so many layers. I remember Different from mine. My family was just they just didn't want me to have surgery just for the fear of having surgery. That was my first major surgery, was my ostomy surgery. And it wasn't like a cultural or something they were ashamed of. It was more of like a fear for them. So I can't imagine having like the fear inside me of having any kind of surgery, and then add on to that all of those aspects.
Yeah, I'm amazed at your journey to be able to contend with all of that and how you deal with that emotionally, physically, on top of your illness. So I'm curious with because you talked about the mistrust in the Western medicine on top of IBD, ostomy. I take it that goes out to broader other illnesses and such. So stigma associated with other illnesses as well. So is there what do you do? What do you do as far as try to tap into that and to support each other within your community, with not just with IBD and ostomy, but with healthcare in general, with health in general?
That's such a great question, Joe, and thanks for asking that. Like, for me specifically, because of what I went through, it was like calling at me to do advocacy work, and I couldn't be sort of hiding behind that veil anymore. I couldn't be behind closed doors anymore. And I spent 12 years behind closed doors. Just in the last 3 years or so, I've come out. It really has been a coming out journey, because in many ways, I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost a lot of people along the way who are like, Tina, how can you be talking about this? This is bringing shame on your family, etc. And I realized at some point that, look, Tina, you're not the only one who's going through this. This is a cultural phenomenon, and it's not just with inflammatory bowel disease or ostomies. It's across the board, and it's much, much more so for young people. In my culture, there's a lot of, I'm sure you've heard of the term arranged marriage. And when you look at chronic illness, it affects your marriageability, because in arranged marriage, what's happening is your parents are setting up your marriage, and there's an exchange of resumes, so to speak. It's called biodatas. And we exchange these resumes of, oh, this is what the person can bring to your family. And if you have a chronic illness, that's a black mark, so to speak. So having an illness as a young person is often sort of, it's often a point of discrimination, a point of ableism, unfortunately, in my culture. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to start speaking up, because I was like, if I'm going through this, other people are too. So the marriageability is one thing. Jobs are another thing. Everybody talks and everybody knows you have this. So your ability to seek a rewarding career can be difficult. Your ability to get married can be very difficult. So a lot of people keep their illnesses under wraps, and only within the family, because not only will it bring shame upon the family, you're also going to be ostracized in society in many ways. The thing about inflammatory bowel disease and ostomies, though, is that there's a layer of stigma that's greater than, say, a fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis, not to minimize those conditions at all, because they are debilitating in their own right. But being that this is a bowel disease, so to speak, or an intestinal disease, we all know it's much more than that. But because this is involving sort of a body part that we don't talk about, it's even more stigmatized. And then the ostomy is even more so. It's honestly, to me, it's more of a fear of the unknown rather than wanting to understand or wanting to know or wanting to ask questions. And it creates more isolation for patients like myself to not have that kind of support. So what I ended up doing in a lot of ways is I initially joined a number of support groups in person and on Facebook. And in recent months, I started a Facebook closed support group, with the pandemic and everything, for South Asians, and even invited Middle Eastern and Far Eastern patients, Far East Asian patients in, because a lot of them are not willing to, speak up or talk about their conditions. And I wanted a safe space for people to start speaking up. So that's how IBD Theses was born. The moderators that I took on to help me moderate that support group, and now we have nearly 700 members. The 6 of us came together and we decided to start an external advocacy platform in the last month, really trying to cater towards, some of these cultural stigmas and talking about them. And if other people don't want to talk about them, at least we can, as the 6 of us, work together, and I can help empower them and mentor them to talk about these conditions and open up about the psychosocial factors and the stigma so that we can normalize the conversation around IBD and ostomies. So that's kind of the trajectory I've been moving in, is how do we empower other people of color who might be suffering from the shame and stigma? And so this was one of the ways that seemed logical and practical from a private standpoint, like a private Facebook community standpoint, but also now as an external advocacy platform, seeing how we can work together to help empower voices, but also share our own stories.
That's amazing and wonderful. And I was wondering if you can drop the link into the comments later so that everyone has a chance to check that out. That's wonderful. You're an amazing human being, Tina.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. As are you all.
You really are.
So thankful that you have great friends who are able to support you, and the community they're able to support you and get you to that ER and drive your car.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was amazing to me. Absolutely. Oops, sorry. Yeah. Oh, interesting. But yeah, I'm still like floored by all that you just said. That's incredible, and I commend you on that.
Yeah, and we'll shift gears just a little bit here, and we'll talk to Charlotte for a moment. Talk to Charlotte. You have a unique perspective as a patient and also as a provider. So I'd like to see if you could talk about that and how the two play off of each other, and how one affects the other, how being a patient affects you being a provider, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's kind of a blessing and a curse all in one thing. And I try to keep a really open relationship with my providers. No one likes to play the whole "I'm a provider too" type of a card. And it's kind of one of those things where sometimes you get treated a little differently by staff because they know that you're a provider, and so that makes them feel uncomfortable. And I'm constantly telling nurses, like, yes, I'm a nurse practitioner, but I don't do this type of stuff. So my brain is full of all of the stuff that I do every day, and this is not one of those things. And so, really, like, treat me like you would any other patient, because I need to know everything. I want to absorb all of the information from you that I can. I will say that there has been a lot of things that I've taken away from the way that I've been treated as a patient by other providers, and that I feel very confidently that every time I go and have a bad experience, that gets filed away in some little folder in my brain. And when I encounter a patient that's feeling the same way that I was, I can recall that and not treat them that way. A situation rises to mind when I was hospitalized a few years ago with some electrolyte imbalances. And the doctor that was taking care of me kept backpedaling on things. Well, it's probably because you're using sugar-free solution, and sugar-free solutions have sugar alcohols in them, and that's going to give you more diarrhea. So really, you're drinking the wrong kind of electrolyte replacement. And I said, but I'm not doing the sugar-free one. Oh, okay. Well, then it's because it has sugar in it, and the sugar is causing the diarrhea. And I called him out and just kind of said, I feel like you're contradicting yourself. And so I don't know how to answer your questions, because I feel like whatever question I answer to you is going to be the wrong answer, when I'm really just trying to tell you what's going on in my life. And he didn't like that, but I still think that after that conversation, then he stopped with all of the flowery words that he was trying to say and really just kind of listened to what I was trying to say to him. Like, I'm not trying to fit into the textbook scenario that you've learned about a condition. I'm trying to tell you what's going on in my life, and I need you to listen. And so, that's kind of hard. And I think about that as a provider too. I've had patients come in. I work in a newborn nursery now, but I did work in an outpatient pediatric office. And I would have patients come in and tell me a story, and I had no idea what was going on. And I knew they wanted me to fix it, but I didn't know how to fix it. And so, as a provider, it's our job to get as much information as we can to try and piece together what could be going on. And, we create a list of possible conditions called a differential diagnosis. And as we get different test results back, we check off one of those things from that list. And then we're left with a couple things that could be going on. And so, I recall that too sometimes when I start to encounter a different symptom than what I had normally had with my Crohn's disease, and how that could fit into what's going on. And also knowing from my provider brain that not all things have to fit into the Crohn's disease bucket. There are other things that I can have going on at the same time that may not fit into the Crohn's disease bucket because they're not Crohn's disease. But I can still get other conditions and still have other symptoms. And it doesn't have to be labeled Crohn's disease every time. So, I try and remain patient and calm with my providers because I do know what it's like to be a provider. When I worked in the office, I would see 20 to 25 patients a day. So in an 8-hour day, starting at 8 and ending at 4:30, 20 to 25 patients. And some of them are super easy. Yep, your throat's red and your strep's positive, your strep screen in and out 5 minutes. Easy to see. Some are complicated, and some take x-rays and labs and time and thinking and shifting gears from one patient to the next. I will say that my current GI doctor is somebody that I love. And one of the things that I love about her has nothing to do with her knowledge or anything that she's prescribed to me or ordered testing to have done. But every time I see her, she says, "How's Mallory? How's Coley?" And I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. And so I know that she doesn't remember that I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old, but I know that she takes 30 seconds before she comes into that appointment to look up my history and know what's going on in my life. And that means everything to me. And so I try and keep track of those things too with my patients. Like what's going on in their life that I can, show them that I'm still human. And I know that whatever's going on right now may be frustrating and it may be scary and overwhelming. But I really want to help them with that as a partner in their care. And so I need them to be honest with me. And in order to kind of like create that environment where they want to share with me, I want to create that relationship with them to know what's going on in their life and that I care about them and that I see them as a patient and I want to help where I can. And I'm very transparent about the fact that I may not have an answer. Sometimes things happen in science that we don't know. Sometimes patients react the way to medications that we didn't expect them to. Or, I've had patients come in that I thought I knew 100% what was going on with them, and then I get their labs result back, and that's not it. And so, it's kind of it's a lot of us in the medical field, we like this because it's interesting and it's different every day, and stuff changes, and there's new medications to try and new testing that we can use, but there's not always an answer. And so sometimes really trying to just be supportive with that as a provider is the approach I take. But I also know as a patient how frustrating that can be, like how mind-numbingly frustrating it can be to feel like utter garbage and go to the doctor and have them walk in and go, "Oh, isn't it great that you're in remission?" Well, yeah, that's great that I'm in remission, but then why do I feel like garbage? Like I need a tangible reason why I feel like garbage and you can't give me one. And that's really frustrating.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling everything what you just said there. And what I really took out of what you said is the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Partnership. That was just like, you hit me in the heartstrings. That's what I want from all of my providers. And, it can be frustrating, like you said, to be sick and not have an answer. But I feel like if somebody's super honest and we work it together to get to that answer, that's, just being heard.
Yeah.
Just being heard is so important.
Absolutely. Last year, I was lucky enough to be able to take a class that it was offered by Cleveland Clinic, and it was how to connect better with your patients. And two of the things that they talked about in that class, and I can't remember the statistics, but they talked about how many times a provider interrupts their patient when they're asking for what brings you in today? And they interrupt because they're, we're trying to move the appointment across because we don't have time we need a Cliff Notes version of what's going on. But how many times we interrupt and don't really just listen to what our patient's saying. And then the other thing that they talked about a lot is not creating those goals. Like, I know when I bring a patient in, I may have an idea what I want to focus on for the appointment as their provider, but they may have a completely different reason why they're here today. So I may have a patient that comes in and their blood pressure is sky high. And so I want to figure out how to get their blood pressure down. But what they want to figure out is that their daughter is getting married in 6 weeks and they want to know how they can be healthy enough to get on that plane. And so really, we have completely different goals and we're never going to get there if we're not on the same page about things.
Yeah. On the same page. That's where I need to be at all times. That's my goal. And
I need to be in the same book. I feel like I'm in a completely different book.
Yeah, I want a fairy tale ending to my IBD, but that's not going to happen. So I will take it one day at a time. That's a great way to look at everything. Thank you for sharing that perspective, because
Absolutely.
I think so many of us get so frustrated because we just want answers, and having that it's a two-way street, right? I mean, our doctors and our nurses want to help us, but we also have to be able to articulate that and get it across. And IBD and all of our chronic illnesses are so hard. That's what I'm pulling out of it. It's hard. It's hard to be a patient. It's hard. It's hard. That's it. That's
It's hard.
I know.
It's hard.
I can't articulate anything today. And I think that's coming through right now, right here.
Well, it's hard, and we're not alone. So it's hard for everyone who encounters this disease. No one has this disease and is like, I feel great 100% of the time.
It's easy.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And bringing this back to our other things is raising this awareness and getting that out and using our voices to make it easier for other people to talk, for other people to find their own voices, and wrapping it up back to World IBD Day, or any kind of awareness that is. I want to talk about raising awareness in general, and how I know, like, on social media right now, we all do it in a different way, especially ostomy awareness. Mm-hmm. And then this is a subject I'd like to touch on, because Joe and I raise awareness in ways that we do our ostomy bombs. You guys are all familiar with that. We stick an ostomy bomb on a famous statue, or on a poster, or
a person
that's unsuspecting. No, just kidding. But I mean, we do that all year round. And we have a tendency sometimes to take some pictures rocking out with our bag out. But we know not everybody can or want to. Let's talk about that, because it seems like it's becoming kind of everybody does it in a different way. I respect that, but I feel like it's being pushed a little bit to make sure that we rock out with our actual bags out. And let's talk about that, can we?
Absolutely. Do you mind if I begin?
No, go ahead.
So I think that's a fantastic question, and it's often not an easy thing for many people to do. For me personally, even though I am comfortable with showing my ostomy, it is something that would feel disrespectful to my husband and to my in-laws and my family for me to do. It's one of those things, culturally speaking, and there's a lot of pressure. The Get Your Belly Out campaign is amazing because it has normalized ostomies so much. Even my friend Galen Henderson, Gutless and Glamorous, when she did the Aerie modeling, and that went live, I think 3 summers ago, I cried because it was like, oh my God, this is real. We are finally getting the attention we deserve. So there's a space and a place for showing ostomy bags, but it's almost like it's become so commonplace that it's expected of us. And I just want to throw like a little bit of a spin on this and I've heard this from a lot of women in my culture, that it's not so easy to do that. And not just my culture, in Arab culture too. So, wearing a hijab, or even in Indian culture, we are expected to cover up. So to show our ostomies, to create awareness in that way, may not be super respectful to our culture. So I'm just going to throw this out there. I know that this hasn't been talked about much, but it is something that I want to bring up tonight because it's important to me. Is here are stories. They matter. I've had an ostomy for 9 years and change now, and had a couple ostomies before that, and I know the ins and outs of ostomy life. It's amazing to be able to show your ostomy, but it's also amazing to be able to support people who don't show their ostomy, but are willing to talk about it and empower people to own their ostomies anyway. The reason why I wanted to really talk about this is there was a big publication last summer that had reached out to me to do a photo shoot in a bikini with my ostomy. They turned me down when I went back to them and said, look, this is not culturally appropriate for me to do, but I'd be happy to pose in a sari with my ostomy and, leave the rest up to imagination and tell my story that way. And they turned me down. And it was extremely upsetting to me, as if my story didn't matter because I didn't want to wear a bikini and show my ostomy. So I just want to put that out there as well, is that our stories matter whether or not we show the ostomy device or any medical device. Remember, a lot of our illnesses are invisible to begin with. We don't need to have to show, the ostomy as this visible structure in order to prove our illness. I think that our stories matter for what they are, and that we should be considered valid and included no matter what.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And that hurt my heart. I can't even imagine being in your shoes and them turning you down. That's absolutely disgusting to me. Honestly, I'll be honest. That hurts my heart and it makes me angry.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I know I myself have never taken into consideration all along. The things you were talking about culturally and such, as far as reasons why you wouldn't show your bag or you wouldn't talk about your IBD or what have you. But I know something we talk about a lot just ourselves, because we know we're on there's a spectrum, and we're far on one end of the spectrum of just being completely out there. But there are people who, for whatever the reason, won't not just physically share, but don't want to talk about it. But everyone still matters, whether you share publicly that you're dealing with an IBD or an ostomy, whether you or not. Your story, whether you choose to share it or not, still matters.
Absolutely. And I want to say too, I also am so super appreciative of those who maybe haven't found their voice yet, or maybe they will never want to, and that's also okay, like Joe just said. But just actively listening and being part of these other campaigns, whether you're just reading or sharing a link or something, you're still raising awareness by elevating that voice and that story. I know that's something we do a lot. Actually, all of us on this panel here do a lot with not only self-advocating, but advocating nationally, locally, getting things done. And, I don't have to walk into that senator's office and whip out my bag. You know what I mean? I can just be very descriptive, and boy, have I. And that's another way to raise awareness. We don't have to be out there in our bikinis doing that thing. Also great for those of you who want to do that, not putting that down. I think it's awesome, but I love that there's so many of us that we can contribute and raise awareness in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
I have to just read a little thing here, because I always like the word butthole. Deb Fox, we had it up on the screen. She said, "I want to respect others' views, but for me, my story is my butthole, or my stoma is my butthole, and I didn't show it before." Good point.
Great point, Deb. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
100% true. That's right.
I've always shown my butthole, so I guess that's since I'm 2.
Oh my gosh. That's just you. That's just you for sure. But I'm trying to see if I was just trying to read through some of the questions here. We had a question earlier. Let me jump back. It was about, let me scroll. I got to scroll. I have to learn how to use the magical mouse. You guys ready for a question?
Sure.
All righty. Lindsay wants to know, what did we all know about IBD before we were diagnosed, and how did that impact us? For me, I think I dabbled a little bit. I was diagnosed in 1999, but I was really sick before that and didn't know much. But I knew that that could have always been a possibility. So back when the internet was just a baby, I did some research on that. Not too much. I think I learned more the most right at my diagnosis in that office. And then I, of course, educated the hell out of myself after I got that correct diagnosis. But what about you, Joe?
I knew nothing. I was 19 when I was diagnosed, and as a 19-year-old, I knew nothing.
You still know nothing.
A lot of 19-year-olds know things. Me as a 19-year-old knew nothing. So.
Yeah. What about you, Tina?
For me, because my father had it, and my aunt and my great aunt, there was an awareness in my family. We didn't really talk about it, but my mom did talk to my sister and me about it a bit. And it was something that I realized hit young, because I did do my research as a young person. And I had learned how young my father was when he got it. So it was always sort of in the back of my mind growing up that this is something that could be a reality for me. I actually didn't realize all the extraintestinal manifestations that I was having as a child were actually Crohn's disease. The eye issues and all the joint issues were just written off as conjunctivitis or, growing pains, but they were actually Crohn's disease. I started having a lot of issues in my teens, still didn't put it together. It was like constipation and GERD, like IBS type stuff. But I didn't have insurance as health insurance as a child. Now with Obamacare, that's different. So we really didn't get things checked out because I grew up sort of in poverty after my father died. And when I got my first job out of college is when I first got health insurance. And that was when I was like, hey, Tina, you've had some weird digestive issues the last few years. I think it's time for you to talk to your GP about it. And I told him, look, this runs in my family. I was 21 years old and, I have GERD, I have IBS stuff going on. What do you think? And he's like, because this runs in your family, I want you to have a colonoscopy ASAP. And I did. And I was diagnosed initially, like Charlotte was, with ulcerative colitis, and I ended up with a J-pouch too. So was I informed about the intensity of the disease? No. Or about the surgeries? No. I knew what an ostomy bag was because my father had it. He never showed it to me growing up. I never saw it. I just heard about it from my mom and how awful it was. But growing up, I just knew how awful this disease was. And I saw my father sort of waste away with this disease. And it really took the life out of him when it became cancer. And he was my age when he developed cancer. I'm 37. And he died at 39 when I was 8 years old. So it was very clear to me that this could be an aggressive disease. So that's why I went for a colonoscopy. And that's why I tried my best to get proactive care. But at the same time, I ran up against all these cultural issues.
Wow.
And Charlotte, how about you? What did you know about
Yeah. I didn't know anything. I just knew that there was blood in my poop and that wasn't normal. And that if I told my mom, they were going to do mean things to me. And so I didn't want to tell her. And then when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and talked into the J-pouch and temporary ileostomy and things, like in my 16-year-old brain, I thought, so I was going to have this surgery and then it was going to be done. And then I wouldn't have ulcerative colitis anymore because I had the surgery and everything would be fixed and that would be fine. And it was just kind of a thing that happened in my life when I was 16 and it would be fine and it would never happen again. And I was not prepared. And when we got the secondary diagnosis of Crohn's, it was very much like, I had been told you can't have ulcerative colitis and Crohn's at the same time. And so when they said it was Crohn's, I was like, no, but I have ulcerative colitis. So I can't have Crohn's because you guys have told me I can't have both. And I was already diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And so I didn't know anything. And back when then there wasn't such a wealth of information at my fingertips. I was really kind of at the mercy of who I perceived experts to be were telling me. And so I really didn't know. And not that it would have changed anything, right? Like the diagnosis would still have been the same. But I feel like I maybe would have been able to be a little bit more proactive in caring for myself and advocating for myself than I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
the
a
wealth of information nowadays is just so important. All the knowledge and research that's coming about, I think it's life altering in so many ways. We didn't have all that. I just knew based on my father's experiences about the disease, and like Charlotte said, based on whatever the perceived experts were telling me. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, we have a question here. How did your doctor walk you through your diagnosis? So I was similar. I had a colonoscopy and it's weird. It was weird for me. I was really happy to be not happy to be told that I had ulcerative colitis, but I was happy to know I had a diagnosis. So for me, for the 6 years prior to that, we blamed it on everything from cheap college food and cheap beer, to too much fruit juice and, all of the in-betweens because we just didn't know. Lo and behold, ulcerative colitis runs in my family and the females in my family. So it's a similar situation. But guess what? No one spoke of it. Most people were undiagnosed until they were much older. And some of it was after I was diagnosed. So it was, it was kind of crazy. I was like the young pioneer that was learning this. But for me, after I was diagnosed, like I said, I was happy to be able to dig into something and learn then. But for me, my doctor, and in particular, had this wonderful, wonderful nurse through the Cleveland Clinic. And between the two of them, they really educated me, whether it was like a pile of pamphlets or, this was, like I said, in 99. So this is not the days of YouTube and Instagram and learning from other people's experiences. But I remember going into that office quite a bit for a couple of reasons. Number one, just to keep track of everything that was happening to me, to learn about new medications I was being put on, to learn about the symptoms that, like Tina said, I had no idea I probably had these symptoms since puberty, and I, as far as I can remember, oh, my eyes always hurt. I was crying, but I wasn't crying. And I thought, oh, it was allergies. And then, I'm 40 years old and they're like, you actually have 0 allergies. Oh, okay. So something was really happening from, late childhood up. But I really credit my knowledge and everything through my doctor and the nurse in his office. She was amazing, and they answered every single question that I had. And I would come back with 20 extra ones the next time. But so that's how I was walked through my diagnosis. And also, fun fact, whenever I have a flare, which is always in the spring, which is kind of happening right now, they always want to look for Crohn's. So I'm often wondering how many of us were originally, I still have only colitis, but it's very interesting the more and more people I talk to who were diagnosed with colitis first, just a side note.
But it's not just only colitis, Danielle. I just want to put that out there. These diseases are really, really difficult to deal with. So, hats off to you for dealing with the ulcerative colitis as well.
It's all fun and games until you have raging bloody diarrhea. Am I right?
I don't know.
Can I just put up a closing message?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Ostomies are lifesavers. Sorry, I just had to do that.
No, I love it. I love it. I love that shirt. It's one of my favorites.
We are wrapping up here. We're almost to the hour. Just real quick, go around and Charlotte, if you could just plug away again at your social media that you share your story through.
Yeah, so on Instagram, my mama's got a brand new bag, and that's kind of my way of making a little joke.
Yay. So yeah.
Charlotte, I'm calling you right after this. I got to look for this.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, look up Charlotte. If you don't follow her already, please follow her. She's, as you can see, is amazing and wonderful. And likewise with Tina. Tina, please go ahead and share yours and plug yours again.
Sure. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Own Your Crohn's. My blog is ownyourcrohns.com. And you can also follow this collective effort called IBD Daisies. That's IBDESIS. And that's basically a platform we've created for South Asians living with IBD and or ostomies.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. It's been educational for me, I know.
Absolutely, as always, as always.
Right.
Oh, this is very nice. Somebody enjoying the ye old Gutsy Gathering. I just made that little pioneer. Me and my pioneer stuff today. I don't know where it's coming from, you guys.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much. I think we can officially sign off now.
Absolutely, yeah. And join all of us. Follow all of us. If you have questions for any of us, please send them our way.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary to Gutsy Gathering. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
And
Yeah, thanks for having us.
months.
Yeah.
All righty.
Everybody, have a great rest of the evening.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining.